Jean-Gabriel, you happen to know Niki in the 80s, early 80s.
The late 70s, for a quick meeting, she was absolutely a great seduction. She was very beautiful, very active, very inspiring because she was extremely intellectual.
Ah, really?
She was a kind of spirit. She was a spirit. She was not only a woman, she was a spirit. She was an energy. She was creative all the time. She was imaginative all the time, and she had a relation with men that was extremely
Seductive.
Seductive, absolutely seductive, and very powerful, with a kind of innocence also.
Wow,
that was
like a kid.
She was. Yes, she was. There was something very childish, innocent, and very powerful in the same time. That was something very. And this beauty was really strong to seduce and to manipulate also.
Ah, to manipulate
Yeah,
forward.
because you could feel that she had another aim that only being happy. She wants to create, and she used the people she loved or the people she don't love, any kind of people, to imagine a new world and a new energy to build a new world of art, and to kill also the word she did not like, the word of the power of man, the power of religion, the power of family, all the kind of power. And you could feel that her elegance, her energy, her seduction was organized against a world of bourgeoisie, a world of idées reçues, a word of the common knowledge of what you support when you are part of a society. She did want to kill your relation with a real society you were raised in.
And so she asked you to be a dealer, or did it work?
No, she did not know. That was not this point. We had a quick meeting. Then I met her again in 1983. When I visit the Tarot Garden, and I tried to be part of a project to help her. And so I was visiting her 2 or 3 times a year in the Tarot Garden to help her to build this Tarot Garden, because she needs money, she needs help, she needs advices. And Jean Tinguely was very helpful. She created her perfume to support financially the Tarot Garden. We did some multiples together for Art Curial. I was in charge. So at the end, she accepted to do
the Galerie Art Curial at the time.
At the time, it belonged to L'Oréal at this time. And she accepted to do some shawls, to do some scarves, to do some beautiful fabrics creations, and jewels also, some jewels. And she did very well. It was very successful, and that could help a little bit for building the Tarot Garden. It's the reason why I was visiting her very, very often. I had my idea because I was supposed to create my own gallery soon, but I could not tell the story before. And but I keep her in mind, and we get very, very strong relation. So in '87, when I built my own gallery, she accepted to join us. Not so easily, but we did it. And she was extraordinarily dependent on the help you could bring to her, because she was strong, extremely
determined
for her work. I mean, in the world, in the same time, in the reality, she was a little lost about the way to support, for instance, the death of her best assistant, Ricardo, that died when I built my gallery. It just died of AIDS, and she was destroyed. So she asked me to organize all the funerals at Saint-Julien-le-Pauvre,
Ah ouais.
the most simple church in Paris, the most beautiful, simple church in Paris, with a Syrian
Liturgy.
liturgy, absolutely.
And so, but what did happen after that? Because at one point she began producing so much, which was not so good for the market, no?
What happened for the market? For the market, she was never really interested in the market. She was interested in her work, and she was interested in her exhibitions in museums, mainly. It's why Pontus Sultan was so helpful, because Pontus Sultan helped Jean Tinguely and Niki Phalle to be exhibited in the Pompidou Center. The market was always difficult for Niki and for Jean. It was not so easy. She was very successful. She could sell a lot of sculptures and works and paperworks, but at low prices, not so expensive prices. It was not the period where when you could build huge prices. She was not organized as a, and I was not organized too, I must say, to build a real strong market. It was not the spirit of the time at this moment. The most important thing was the presence of the artists in the museums and in the critics.
But to finance the Jardin des Tarots, the
Yeah.
Tarot Garden, she produced a lot at some point.
She produced the perfumes. She produced a lot of multiples.
Yes.
Some with me, some with Guy Peters, the Belgium gallery. So some galleries were helpful to produce some multiples.
But it distorted the image in a way.
Sorry?
It distorted the image.
That's the problem of Niki was. It was interesting to understand that Niki, she was in a hurry. She was in a hurry. She knew she was ill since she was 60, even before, but after 60 she knew that the story will be short. So she died at 72, and the last year was terrible. So she had few times. So she organized her time to produce multiples, to produce some beautiful sculptures also, but the multiples could give her the money immediately to finish a garden. So that it destroyed part of her image, that's true. That's true. But now I see that now we exhibit in the gallery, we exhibit some multiples, and at the end they are absolutely charming, in fact. They are not so destroying the image. They are part of her game, because Niki is full of humor, and it's a game between the strong story of her revolt against the manpower, and at the same time she was playing with colorful sculptures, nanas, and beautiful creation of decorative art. She loved it too. She loved decorative art, jewels, scarves, vases. She loved it. She loved to do it also. That was part of her own creation. But in the same time, she did the Tarot Garden. That's a masterpiece.
Merci, monsieur.